When we hear the word hell, many of us immediately think of a fiery, tormenting place where souls are eternally punished. It's the image of suffering, regret, and separation from everything good. However, what if I told you that the concept of hell is much more complex than we often realize? According to the Bible, hell isn't just one singular, unchanging place. There are actually different kinds of hell, each with its own specific purpose and significance. This might sound surprising, but if we look closely at the original texts and teachings in the Bible, we'll see that the idea of hell is far more layered than we often imagine. In this video, we're going to dive deep into what the Bible really says about hell. By the end, you'll gain a fuller understanding of the subject, not just from the typical perspective, but from the layers of meaning that are often overlooked. We'll explore 3 distinct places the Bible refers to as hell and why each one matters when it comes to understanding the unseen world. Trust me, you don't want to miss this. Let's start with the first one, hell for human souls. When most people think of hell, this is the one that comes to mind, a place of torment, fire, and eternal separation from God. The Bible frequently talks about this kind of hell, a destination for human souls who reject God's love. But this hell is not a chaotic, wild place where demons reign over sinners. In fact, demons themselves are terrified of being sent there. Hell, in this sense, isn't about demonic rulers enjoying the suffering of others. It's about the soul being eternally cut off from God's presence. Jesus spoke about this kind of hell many times. In Matthew 10, verse 28, he warned of the one who can destroy both body and soul in hell. He made it clear that this hell isn't just a physical place of torment. It involves the soul, the very essence of who we are. In Matthew 8, verse 12, he described it as a place of outer darkness, where there is weeping and gnashing of teeth. These images, darkness, weeping, and grinding teeth, are meant to convey the deep emotional and spiritual agony of being forever separated from the presence of God. When we think of hell as a place of fire, many of us imagine flames consuming everything in sight. But the deeper meaning behind this fire isn't necessarily about literal flames. The fire symbolizes pain and regret, a torment far more intense than any physical suffering we might experience. In the Bible, hell is also referred to as the lake of fire in Revelation 20, a place where those who have rejected God are cast. But the fire in this passage doesn't evoke the image of a burning inferno. Rather, it represents the soul's unbearable agony of being apart from God. One term that helps explain the nature of this hell is Gehenna. Gehenna was an actual valley outside Jerusalem, known for being a place where trash, refuse, and the bodies of criminals were burned. It was a constantly burning, decaying, and unclean place, symbolizing hopelessness and ruin. When Jesus used the term Gehenna, he was speaking of a place of total destruction and separation. For those who choose to reject God, the Bible teaches that this hell is the end result, an eternal state of separation from everything good and meaningful. But what makes this hell so serious is that it's not a random or arbitrary punishment. Hell is not a place where people end up because of mistakes or ignorance. The Bible is clear that hell is the natural consequence of a life lived in rejection of God. We're given free will to choose whether to accept or reject Him. And those who choose to reject God ultimately find themselves in this place. It's not a punishment for human failure. It's the result of a deliberate choice to live apart from God. In Matthew 25, Jesus gives a powerful warning about this eternal fate. He speaks of the final judgment, where people will be separated. Some will be ushered into eternal life, while others will face eternal punishment. The Bible speaks of this separation as something final and irreversible. a decision that cannot be undone once it's made. For those who find themselves in hell, the suffering will be marked by deep regret, sorrow, and anguish as they realize too late the consequences of their decisions. It is a suffering not from physical pain, but from the realization that their choice to reject God has led them to an eternity devoid of meaning and connection. The phrase eternal fire in some translations refers to a fire that never ceases, an unquenchable fire. But this fire isn't just about physical burning. The true torment comes from being completely cut off from God's presence. Without God, there is no peace, no joy, no comfort. Everything that once gave life meaning, love, truth, beauty, becomes meaningless. That is the real anguish of hell, the emptiness that comes from total separation from the Creator. To understand the depth of this hell, think of a life lived without connection to God. Imagine being completely alone, with no one to comfort you, no hope, and no possibility of change. That is the eternal existence for those in hell. There is no escape, no second chance, and no redemption. It's a permanent state of suffering with no end. This idea of hell is made even clearer in the story of the rich man and Lazarus in Luke 16. After his death, the rich man finds himself in a place of torment, while Lazarus is comforted in the presence of God. The rich man, in his suffering, asks for a small mercy, to have even a drop of water to cool his tongue. But it's too late. The story emphasizes the reality of regret and the impossibility of reversing the consequences of one's choices once life is over. This parable shows us how important it is to live with awareness of our choices, especially when it comes to our relationship with God. Hell, in its essence, is about the soul's separation from God. It's not about a place of wild parties or chaotic suffering. It's a place of spiritual death where all the things we once valued in life, comfort, love, peace, are forever lost. The real torment is spiritual and psychological, not physical. It's the consequence of rejecting God's offer of life, and it reflects the choices people make during their lives. The Bible teaches us that no one is forced into hell. Every person who ends up in hell made a series of decisions that ultimately led them there. It's not a random act of cruelty, but the result of free will. Each individual chooses whether to accept or reject God. Hell, then, is not a punishment for mistakes, but the natural consequence of a life lived in rebellion against the Creator. This is why Jesus warned about hell, not to scare people, but to help them understand the serious consequences of their actions. He wanted people to know that life is short, and the decisions we make matter. He often used parables and stories to illustrate this point, urging people to live in a way that would lead them to eternal life rather than eternal separation from God. To understand hell, we need to remember that it's not just a place of suffering. It's a place where the soul is eternally separated from the only source of true life and meaning. The ultimate agony of hell is not the fire or the darkness, but the loss of God's presence. In the end, hell is a consequence of our choices, and it stands as a warning. Choose life, choose God, or face an eternity of emptiness and regret. So, when we think about hell, we must remember that it's not a place designed by God to punish people randomly. It is, instead, the result of our choices. It's a solemn reminder that the decisions we make in this life are of eternal importance. In the next part of this video, we'll explore the second kind of hell, an entirely different place set aside for rebellious spirits. This place is not for human souls, but for demons, spiritual beings who have chosen to oppose God's will. Stay tuned, because the concept of the abyss, as it's called, is just as fascinating and mysterious as the hell we've discussed here. The abyss is not just another place in the unseen world. It serves as a severe consequence for those who oppose God. For demons, freedom is the ultimate power, and to be confined in the abyss is an unimaginable punishment. The abyss strips away everything that defines their existence, their ability to roam, influence, and act in the world. For them, it's the ultimate restraint, and the very nature of this confinement makes it one of the most extreme forms of punishment they can face. The abyss highlights the seriousness of spiritual law in God's creation. God's system of justice is not random or arbitrary. There is order and structure even in the unseen world, and the abyss plays a key role in that order. Just as humans are held accountable for their choices, demons too are subject to divine judgment. The abyss exists because demons chose rebellion over submission to God's authority. They weren't cast into it by accident. It's not a place of random punishment, but the direct consequence of their defiance. This is not a temporary sentence. It holds them permanently for as long as God allows. One of the most crucial aspects of the abyss is its function. This place doesn't just serve as punishment for demons. It acts as a safeguard, protecting the world from the influence of these rebellious spirits. Demons, with their intelligence and power, could wreak havoc on earth if left unchecked. Without the restraint of the abyss, their influence could disrupt human lives and cause chaos in God's creation. The Bible makes it clear that God's justice involves both punishment and restraint. The abyss is part of that justice. It prevents these malevolent forces from causing harm unless God permits it. A vivid example of the abyss's terrifying effect can be found in Luke 8, verse 31. In this passage, a group of demons recognizes Jesus' supreme power and immediately begs him not to cast them into the abyss. Instead, they plead to be allowed to enter a herd of pigs, which then drown in a lake. The fear the demons show at the thought of being sent into the abyss speaks volumes about the nature of this place. Even the most powerful evil beings are not immune to the terror that the abyss instills. They understand that once they're there, they lose their freedom. There's no escape, no influence. They are rendered powerless. The abyss also teaches us a powerful lesson about spiritual authority. God is the ultimate ruler, and his authority extends over every being, human, demon, and angel alike. While humans may struggle with their decisions and the consequences of those decisions, demons cannot resist God's plan. They may act for a time, but the Bible assures us that God has ultimate control. He has a place for every rebellious being, and the abyss is the holding place for those who defy his will. The abyss reminds us that no matter how powerful or influential an entity might seem, they cannot escape God's justice. Moreover, the abyss offers us a glimpse into the order of the spiritual world. It is not a realm of chaos or randomness. There are rules and there are consequences. This truth applies even to beings who exist beyond the human realm, those we cannot see but whose actions still have real consequences. The abyss stands as a symbol of God's justice, his power, and his order. It shows that disobedience, whether from humans or demons, will eventually lead to a place where all freedom is stripped away. Now, let's move on to the third place in the unseen world, Tartarus. Tartarus is a distinct prison specifically designed for fallen angels. Unlike hell, which is for humans, or the abyss, which holds rebellious demons, Tartarus is a place reserved for the angels who sinned from the very beginning, those who chose to follow Satan in his rebellion against God. These angels are often associated with the Nephilim, the giants mentioned in Genesis 6, and their disobedience led to their expulsion from heaven. Instead of remaining in God's presence, they were cast into the darkness of Tartarus, where they are confined until the day of judgment. The Bible speaks of Tartarus in 2 Peter 2 verse 4, describing how God did not spare the angels who sinned, but cast them into chains of darkness to be kept for judgment. The imagery here is powerful and stern. These angels, who were created in perfection and power, chose rebellion, and now they are confined in a dark prison, awaiting the justice they deserve. Unlike the abyss, which holds demons in fear and restraint, Tartarus serves as a place of strict confinement, awaiting their final judgment. To help us understand Tartarus, we can compare it to a regular prison. A regular prison might give a person some freedom within the confines of its walls. But Tartarus is more like an unbreakable, eternal prison, with no room for movement or influence. The fallen angels are completely removed from the presence of God, isolated in chains of darkness. There's no opportunity for escape, and they cannot interfere with God's creation. They are in a state of waiting for the final judgment that is coming for them. The Bible uses strong language to communicate the seriousness of their rebellion and the permanence of their punishment. Tartarus is not a temporary holding cell. It's a place where these angels are locked away until the time God has set for their ultimate judgment. It's a clear indication that the consequences of their actions are irreversible, and they will remain there until God deems the right moment for their judgment. Tartarus also teaches us about the seriousness of rebellion, especially among those who were once closest to God. Humans, in our choices, can be led astray, but the fallen angels were created to serve and be in the presence of God. Their rebellion was a direct act of defiance against their Creator, and their punishment reflects the gravity of that offense. These angels, with all their power and knowledge, chose to rebel, and now they are held accountable for their actions. Their fall serves as a reminder that no one, not even the most powerful beings, is above God's authority. The purpose of Tartarus is not just punitive, it's also protective. These angels were once powerful and glorious, and if they were left unrestrained, their influence could disrupt God's creation in ways we cannot even imagine. By confining them in Tartarus, God ensures that they have no power over the world or humanity. It's a safeguard, a way for God to maintain order in the spiritual world while awaiting the final judgment. This brings us back to the idea that there is structure in God's justice. Each kind of rebellion has its own consequences, and each rebellious being has its own designated place of confinement. Hell is for humans, the abyss is for demons, and Tartarus is for fallen angels. These are not random or chaotic places, but are carefully designed by God to match the nature of the beings confined there. Understanding these different realms, hell, the abyss, and Tartarus, gives us a deeper insight into the unseen world. It's not a chaotic, disorderly place. There is a plan, and there is purpose behind each decision and consequence. These places remind us that our choices matter, whether we are human, angel, or demon. Rebellion against God leads to separation, isolation, and a loss of freedom. But choosing to follow God leads to life, purpose, and connection with the Creator. As we consider these realities, it's important to remember that the unseen world is real, and the choices we make today have lasting consequences. Our relationship with God shapes our eternity. Will we choose life and connection, or will we choose rebellion and separation? The Bible presents a powerful picture of what happens when we choose to live apart from God, and it serves as a reminder that we are responsible for the decisions we make. If you found this exploration of the unseen world fascinating, stay tuned for more. We'll continue to dive deep into the mysteries of the Bible and the spiritual world in future videos. Your journey of understanding is just beginning, and there's so much more to uncover. Thank you for watching, And be sure to check out our other videos for even more insights into the mysteries that shape our world.